Welcome to your practice. This is going to be a shorter, well, at least in the restorative world, this is going to be a shorter restorative practice to focus on elongating the spine, creating some room around the rib cage, and we're going to end with a soothing breathing practice. We're going to start with a little bit of somatic movement just to focus our attention, kind of step away from all the distractions of life. And then we'll do two shorter restorative shapes with a little bit of head support and then a long pranayama shavasana. So prop-wise, pretty light today. A blanket, maybe a bolster, at least a block, maybe two. So we're going to start with a little bit of cat-cow. So we're going to come to hands and knees to your tabletop position. And of course, pad up your knees if you need that extra cushion. And then whenever you're ready, beginning to move the spine, at least starting with the classical flexion extension of cat-cow. And then if you want it to ripple out into the hips or the head, you want to make some circles. Any other movement that you like. Linking the movement to the speed of your breathing. And we're going to add just a little bit of a back bend in child's pose. So you're going to slide the hands slightly forward from the shoulders. You're going to move the hips back towards the heels. And then coming forward through your tabletop and then into an upward dog on the knees. So hips and the thighs move down as you lift the chest. And then you pull hips and thighs back towards child's pose. And then ripple forward to that supported upward facing dog. You can add your own movement to this as well. If you want to go almost like a figure eight, kind of lean to one side then the other, and sneak your way forward. You could look over the shoulder. Might linger in that front body stretch of the upward dog. Just 30 more seconds of movement. And then sitting back on the heels and grabbing one of your blocks. So we're going to do a downward facing dog with head support. I'm sure many of us have done this together before, but I just want to go through it again so we're clear. So the head support is not on the very top of the head. It's also not the forehead. It's somewhere in between. So we ultimately want to keep the neck in neutral. So that means if we go to the top of the head, you put the top of the head on something, it's going to drop the chin and flex the cervical spine. You can hear it in my voice. If we put it on the forehead, it's going to lift the chin and compress the back of the neck. So we're aiming for somewhere in between where we can keep the neck neutral. So I think the easiest way to do this is to have your blocks close by, come into a down dog first. You can go as wide as you want with the feet, depending on how much movement you've done prior to this, as wide as you want with the arms. And then if you let the head fall, you see naturally where it wants to go. So you're not looking forward, you're not tucking the chin, it's just falling right between the arms. And then you can stay in the dog pose and do this or come down to your knees, but you might have a sense of, I think I need to stack two blocks. And yeah, okay, actually that was perfect. That's right about neutral. Or you might come down, try it on one position, go back into your dog pose, see if that works, come back down, modify. And we're not going to hold this for nearly that long, maybe just five breaths. And since we're all kind of working out on our own, that right amount of support, once you get into the dog pose, you feel good about your neck alignment, taking 5 breaths on your own, and then coming down, child's pose or seated, and pause. A little bit of the irony is the longer you're here, things start to open and you may feel like, oh, I can take that down a little bit. And then taking a few breaths, once you release, either a place of stillness to pause or a little bit of movement. And then we're going to do one more shape with this head support. We're going to do a standing forward fold and come up onto your feet and choosing how wide do you want to go at the legs. I'm going to take a pretty wide straddle today, but you could keep it more narrow. You could go your widest straddle. You could do hip width apart. So kind of negotiating with hips and hamstrings of the day. Same idea as your dog pose. So you might have things close by and you forward bend. See where the head falls. Whoop. And then you bring the props to you. And you might need extra pillows and blankets to really make this just the right amount of height. And then you can let the arms drop, just let them hang. You could grab opposite elbows. And then same, once you get into the shape, taking 5 breaths. Or if you want to stay a little longer. And then after those 5, 10 breaths, again, choosing. There's somewhere that you'd like to pause. Or maybe you want to return to how we started with that cat-cow movement. We're going to continue on with this theme of spinal elongation. And now we're going to give just a little bit of opening for the chest as we move into our breathing. So you're going to grab one blanket at least. And I can already tell I need to refold this blanket. So making sure it's pretty even, pretty smooth. And you want to start with a big kind of rectangle. So fringe to fringe, non-fringe to non-fringe is generally the rule. If you don't have fringed blanket, it's top to bottom and then side to side, right to left. All right, and then you're going to fold your blanket in half lengthwise. So you have something resembling this long rectangle. And then it's much easier to see because I do have fringe. One side is fringy and unkempt. One side is nice and clean and rounded. You want to use the clean rounded edge to fill in the low back. So have the fringe part of the blanket moving away from you towards the back of the mat. And then for the legs, we want to support the legs. I'm going to do Stonehenge today, but you could do legs straight, maybe just a bolster under the backs of the knees. You could swing the legs up onto a couch or a comfy chair. I'm going to create my couch and comfy chair with the blocks and bolster. So blocks are on mama bear, baby bear, mama bear, papa bear. The bolster on top. The legs swing up onto this. And then hopefully you can see, I know my pants are dark like my mat, but I'm not sitting on the blanket, I'm sitting on my mat. But the blanket is right against the back of the pelvis so that when I lie back, it's filling in the lumbar curve. So it's just filling in that negative space of the low back. So legs swing up. We're gonna get still, which means your temperature might drop. So if you have an extra blanket or two to cover yourself, you might have an eye pillow close by. And go ahead and help yourself down so the blanket is spanning the length of the spine. And then if you're choosing to put your legs up similar to mine, you're going for roughly a 45-degree angle. So I can feel the backs of the thighs just against the bolster. That's going to be most settling and soothing for the hips and the pelvis. And then for my head and the neck, I need a little bit more. And thankfully my blanket is long enough that I can reach back and curl the blanket underneath to create a little bit of a pillow. But you could grab an additional pillow, additional support. And again, make sure you're warm enough. Taking the arms out to the sides, just far enough away from the body that the armpits have room, which sounds weird, but the lungs go all the way up underneath the armpits. So you don't want the arms tucked too closely in at your sides. You want to move them out enough. One, you can feel those shoulders drop. And two, there's room for the lungs to expand laterally. And then intuitively, I like to rest on the pinky edge of the hand. You could turn the palms up. Take a few breaths to let things just soften. And I'm going to walk you through a breathing practice to extend the exhale, which is associated with the parasympathetic nervous system, that down regulation. So you can move with me, or you can just let yourself take a savasana and not worry about the breathing. Just an opportunity to turn inward, turn off from the rest of the world. Okay, if you're moving with me, I've established that normal breathing cadence. And we'll begin by leveling out the inhale and the exhale, so making them the same length. We're going to start with a count of 4. If that feels like too much, you can shave off a number or 2. So when you're ready, just silently to yourself, you're going to inhale to a count of 4. Exhale to a count of 4. Inhale to 4. Exhale to 4. And then take it on your own, several rounds, matching the inhale and exhale in duration. And keeping the inhale the same, you're going to add one additional count to the exhale only. So inhale stays that original count of 4. Now exhaling to a count of 5. And following this new pattern, the first sign of resistance, you let it all go. Find your normal breathing rhythm. And then maybe you pick it back up again. If it's accessible, adding another count to the exhale. Inhale stays with your original count. Now exhaling 1 or maybe 2 beats longer. Maybe one more time, adding an extra count to the exhale only. Inhale, original count of 4. Now exhaling to a count of 7. After your next exhale, letting the count go. Falling back into that autonomic breathing rhythm. We're going to end with several minutes just resting quietly. And you can stay with the blanket support under the spine. Or you could roll just far enough to a side, move it out from underneath you, keeping some kind of support for the head. And resting in neutral, your preference. Just gliding right into your Shavasana. Remaining quiet and still. Staying soft in the body. Take a slow breath in. Slow breath out. And slow breath in. Slow breath out. Reorienting yourself to your environment, taking in the sounds, things you can feel. Bending the fingers, wiggling the toes. Fluttering the eyes open and shut. Bending one knee at a time. And then rolling to a side. Curling up there for a few breaths. Make sure you cradle the head. And drawing your spine up, finding a comfortable seat. Final moment to pause if you like some kind of gesture of kindness, hand on the heart, palms folded together in prayer. Gently nodding the head towards the heart and the hands. Offering yourself a moment of thanks. And closing with one last slow breath in. A generous breath out. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.